Brian Hall here for the Orlando Code Camp 2013, and with me I have Ovi Dimulescu. Is that saying that right?
Yes, you got it.
Okay, good. And today you are doing two talks, right?
That's right.
One on Hadoop, and then one on GitHub for Windows, or Git for Windows in general. So, but tell me about Hadoop. You know, your talk is called "One Elephant Went Out to Play." So, what's going on with Hadoop?
Well, Hadoop has taken off tremendously in the last year or so, and the reason I use that kind of playful name, Hadoop is named by the creator for his son Elephant Toy.
Right.
So that's where the elephant comes into play. But it's really not just on Windows story. It's actually on Windows. It's somewhat of a second class citizen, if you want. So Microsoft is working on fixing that, but that's why I wanted to get people exposed early on, kind of know what's going on, so they can ride the wave when the moment comes.
Yeah, and so Hadoop is all about big data, correct?
It is big data, yes.
Yeah. So, and I know that Azure has a Hadoop story, correct? Is that okay? And how does let's just start with SQL. Like the difference between that and SQL. Obviously, we've got relational data with SQL, but Hadoop is more designed to process.
Well, so SQL is for one structured data and also designed to be interactive.
Right.
Hadoop is neither of those, so it's not designed to be neither interactive nor structured data. So you can put anything. You have log files, video recording, images, whatever you can store it. You can just put it there.
Okay.
And also with SQL, you have some limitation how much you can store. So then typically you have to do some sort of data pruning, and archiving. Versus Hadoop, you put it and you always have it there. You can mine the entire data set or just a certain subset. That's really where the advantage is. And it runs on commodity hardware. So with SQL, in order to scale it, you would have to kind of get big iron, right? And then there is licensing cost and other things associated with it. Whereas with Hadoop, it's more the manpower, right, or the brain power to keep it running versus the actual licensing cost or hardware cost associated with it.
Okay. And with that, so what I'm hearing is Hadoop is more like it's almost like blob storage, but designed to be, you can process that data. There's more.
Well, so Hadoop is really two things. It's got a storage layer, which is a distributed file system. So that's a storage layer, and there is a compute layer. So you can actually run computation on top of your data, right?
Okay.
But the difference between other systems, it's not typically you would read data off your data store and then send it to the nodes to process it. Where Hadoop makes it collocated for the most part, where you have data and computation happens on the same node.
Okay.
So then it makes it efficient. You don't have to stream, a lot of data over the network for the most part. That's really where kind of if you want the secret sauces.
Yeah. Okay. So like you said, and then that makes it very scalable. Of course.
Absolutely, it scales horizontally. I mean, there is obviously some limitations still, but I mean, they're continuously increasing the number. I mean, you have to be a large organization to hit those limitations. I think Yahoo had like 4,000 nodes in production.
Wow.
So when you're talking about like really web scale to hit those limitations, for most organizations, you're probably not going to hit that anytime soon.
Well, and so speaking of hitting that limitation, if you will, could an app developer, for example, could they use Hadoop? I mean, is that too much, or is it the right context to be using it? Or?
Well, for an app developer, this is an interesting question, right?
Yeah.
So for one to start, it's easier to start and test locally, right? It's not necessarily just the big data. It's more because the big data, I found it's kind of overused, if you want, right? So now people are trying to kind of move away from the buzzword, right?
Yeah.
So you use a different moniker, so it's more like smart data, as they call it.
Okay.
So it doesn't necessarily matter how much of a data is, what you do is that data, like asking the smart question, getting some value out of your data. So in that regard, I think Hadoop can help. A lot of people think, well, only if you have lots of data, you can get value out.
Okay, good.
It definitely helps if you have a lot of data, but the way to look at it, even if you start small, you can just keep growing because the system supports you, ready to to grow.
Right, and you said, so which brings up the point, you could be one guy writing something using one node, and that's all you need.
Yes,
right.
And it's actually the so-called, what you refer to, the single node installation. It's actually makes it easier to debug.
Okay.
Right, because otherwise, if you think even like regular application, the moment they're distributed across multiple nodes, you don't necessarily know where it ends, you know, or you have to go to multiple nodes. This one, makes it easier to debug that way. So definitely single node installation, that's how it starts locally and then make the jump to when you have real nodes.
Okay.
But it's the same concept, so you don't really.
And you can run like, you know, indexes or I'm speaking in SQL terms, but you know, the computations that you're going to be doing on your data, like what kind of computations are you talking about?
Well, the computation really, it's a wide set of computation you can run. It's really up to the business. But to give you an example, and this is kind of how it originated, was the low-hanging fruit for the Hadoop.
Right.
It was log processing. Think like old web, you know, the Rabbit statistics, what is the most common IP, most common pages,
right.
number of bytes. So that's really like one low-hanging fruit, whatever solution you may have had before.
Yeah.
This makes it easier to always process it. Because typically, so you can use, not necessarily data-wise, think about like parallel batch.
Okay.
So if you have a lot of things to process in parallel, you can use it just for that aspect of it.
Okay.
Go out, index, fetch things, you know, and then at the end maybe do some roll-ups.
Okay.
So that's another way to use like a robust parallel batch system if you want.
Yeah.
So if you don't have data, but you have something really like a web crawler. So going back to the history of Hadoop, it actually wasn't a standalone project. So it originated out of Lucene and Notch. So Notch was a web crawler, was going out indexing pages, so they needed something to be able to go and do the parallel index.
Right, and parse all that.
In parse all that. But yeah, so that's one log parsing. You can do like something smarter, like data mining, machine learning, trying to derive a pattern, recommendation engine. So there are different things you can do with it.
Wow. So, you know, I personally, obviously, if anybody can tell, I haven't used Hadoop, so I'm very new to it. That's the concepts of it. But it, you know, from my perspective, it's like I hear Hadoop and I hear the buzzword big data that tags along with it, right? So what I'm trying to say is, well, maybe I can use Hadoop. You know, we're venturing into new territories in development nowadays, and SQL is not the go-to answer, you know, anymore necessarily. So
Yes.
Hadoop can definitely fill that need. It does fall under the NoSQL movement, technically.
It does, but it's not in a, so NoSQL is still a true data store you would expect to query real time.
Okay.
Versus Hadoop, you're not expected to query real time. It's more of a batch. That's the core Hadoop, right?
Okay.
So there are now, because I'm talking about Hadoop, as I said, it's just the core of it.
Right.
It's just a storage layer and a compute layer.
Okay.
So a lot of people, as they found out, what was really great at doing this kind of batch jobs and reducing, you know, like whether it took days, weeks, whatever, it's reducing to hours or minutes,
Right.
or, you know, half an hour. It still wasn't acceptable if you think, or feasible rather than acceptable from a business analyst, to run a query and get something back, you know, seconds later or so.
Okay.
So there are two big pushes here. One is making Hadoop accessible to not just developers. So get business analysts, they don't program typically, so they will know SQL, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then there is a SQL interface to Hadoop, and Hive is one of them. It runs on top of Hadoop and let you use SQL. So
Oh, wow.
it's called SQL-like. It's called HQL, so
Okay.
Hive query language,
Okay.
but it's very SQL-like, right? So it's got
Right.
specific extension for Hadoop, but from a business analyst, they're very easy to pick up, right? So you write your queries, but this still doesn't make it interactive. It makes it more approachable,
Yeah.
but it's not. You're still kind of in the batch
Yeah,
mode.
you're writing what's going to be run in your batch. It's what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah, well, so what happens behind the scene, it still compiles to Java and MapReduce. So it's really just a sequel to MapReduce. So it has the same overhead. I mean, they're always improving the analyzer and trying to make it, you know, faster. And there are several projects. One from Cloudera, Impala, which tries to do the same thing, and they claim, I think, now up to maybe 5 to 10 or 10 times, tenfold faster. So this is definitely the big area of research right now, where to make, you know, almost real-time or near real-time statistics.
Right.
Yeah. Because Google came out with, it's called a Storm. So what they do is, in order to be able to get real-time statistics, they would marry Hadoop processing with Storm. So Storm is real-time ingestion, and then it eventually gets flushed to, you know, in Hadoop.
Okay.
But the actual query engine is able to aggregate across Hadoop and Storm.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty nice. So the other class you're doing is on Git,
Yes.
and Git for Windows developers, because that's sort of new territory as far as from a Windows developer perspective, so .NET in general. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in that class.
Well, I'm going to give, the way I like to structure the classes typically is not as much, well, it depends on the classes, but for most of them I found, this is just my personal perspective, if I go to classes where it's really heavy on code, unless I expect to be a hands-on lab for hours, or really I have my laptop and I can do that, it's just, sometimes you don't see the forest from the trees with the code, right? So I like to take a step higher and kind of give the high level, the big picture, that people can go home, take away, and do the research. Because I think that's more important rather than how to do it. Is more what you should be thinking about, right? To understand, because it takes research, right, to get to the things, why you should be using one versus the other, rather than how to do it. Because you can research, once you know, this is what I want to do, then you can go and research, because it's a concept, but it's more, why should I be picking this over this, or why should I, or even if you do a how, maybe explain a how as in a gotcha, right? Maybe, why you really should be looking at this versus doing the way it's recommended.
Right.
So in terms of Git, it will basically be covering what is so fundamentally different versus other source control systems, and then go over the Windows specifics, like what clients, the exciting new developments. Now Microsoft in the 2012, it's just community preview, but I mean it's really good. It's going to be first class citizen alongside TFS.
Right, yeah, really the regular version control systems, the SVMs and the others that are out there. So yeah, and that's just as an overview, like what is the differences between a Git distributed version control system and something like centralized?
Well, so the main one obviously is there's no one central repository. Now, when you say that is the system allows you to have as many copies, right? So the developer has a full copy and they can have as many reference repository if you want, right? Now, most companies still, I would say, work in the central repository model because that's easier to understand, right? But it's just Git is flexible. You can have, let's say, consider you have distributed teams, right? Maybe you have some in US, you have some offshore, whatever, in Europe, India, China. So typically, it's difficult to have replication with other systems, whether it's SVN, TFS. There are solutions, right? But it's not kind of out of the box. Whereas with Git, you can have local copies, and there's still a reference system, but it's just easier to work detached, right? From
you're branching by default.
Well, it's again, this is the beauty. I mean, I attended earlier a class on architecture, and one thing they, the presenter shows, they show like the Swiss army knife, right? You can do everything, and then you have lots of smaller tools, right? Just specialized tools. So this is the way I see Git. It doesn't try to do everything for you. It really gives you all the tools, and you can actually mold it how you want. If you want to work branches, sure, you can do always branch by default. But if you're used to regular just have one main line, you can use it. So most people, when they start, they don't necessarily go right away, because they're not used to. But as you get more comfortable, you start to exploit, what's available.
Yeah, the things the more powerful aspects of it, which are the rebasing, rolling back, and things like that. So it makes it powerful in that respect. You can have your own local branch, and then when you're ready to push up your changes, you just cherry pick what you want, and then you can push up your changes where you're not affecting.
For me, what I found in the beginning, you don't really exploit it fully. It takes a little bit to kind of understand why is it, right?
Same here,
So it takes a little bit of adjusting. But once you're comfortable with the base, because you can use Git like any other system, right? So that's what I'm saying, but you're not really exploiting it. So you shouldn't change and use it as any other system, right? It's kind of you switch to doing C#, and then you still program in C. So there's no point of doing C#, you're still doing procedural imperative, right? So that's the way I look at it with Git. If you switch, try to actually exploit it as much as you can. And really, if you think before, let's say you're working on a feature, right? And you have an interruption, somebody comes and say, hey, we need to really fix this thing. So typically what you do, I guess now with TFS, you can do some shelving, you can do a few things, but you want to get the things you are working out of the way, maybe get a different branch or whatever you will need to put a fix on, and then switch back to what you're working on. So Git makes this really easy where you don't have to do a lot of magic, you know, and hocus pocus, trying to just copy folders, revert, you know, it's really, you can say stash, you know, go back, switch between branches like it's flawlessly, just because everything is local, so for one, you don't depend on the network, and being available and being fast enough, right? So it's really everything happens almost on the fly.
Right, and then with Visual Studio, the recent announcement that they're incorporating Git support right into the TFS tab in Visual Studio, that looks pretty exciting as well.
It is. So right now Git is available just on the hosted version of TFS. So if you use the TFS service, it's going to be it's there actually already. And my understanding is they're going to support it in on-premise. So Team Foundation Server, I guess it's called, is going to be available as well. They haven't announced it quite yet, but when it's going to come out, it's going to have it. But until then, you can definitely use Git even locally, even if you don't switch to use TFS backset. You can connect to GitHub or any other Git provider for that matter. But really, the thing is, you wouldn't feel the difference. Before you had to put, I mean, I'll touch in the talk about a few options like Git extensions or Git provider for VSS, and you know, but those are subpar compared to native integration.
Right. Yeah, and now with GitHub for Windows too, that also makes, if you're working with GitHub, you have GitHub repositories, it definitely makes working with Git on Windows a much easier experience, especially if you're connecting to GitHub. So that's another option for Windows developers. But definitely, thank you very much for coming on today. How can people get in contact with you, give you money, whatever the case may be? What kind of, are you on Twitter?
I'm Twitter. Twitter, it's probably the best. I'm at O Dimulescu.
Okay. And we'll put that in the show notes too. Okay. So
because I doubt they'll spell it right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So
that's probably best. I mean, I run the mobile user group in Jacksonville, so that's easy.
That's right. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah, so that's jaxmug.com, mug.com. So I started the group last year.
Okay.
I wanted to do. Initially, I was looking to do maybe like a JavaScript user group.
Right.
But then I thought maybe it would be maybe too specialized of sorts for for Jacksonville. So I figured let's start. I was looking like what's really a need, because I didn't just want to start a group for the sake of starting a group. So I noticed mobile was really not catered to. Yet, as in a dedicated group, you see mobile talks popping up, whether it was the .NET user group, there is Windows phones, there is iOS here and there. So there are mobile, all building mobile web apps, right? There was HTML5 and JavaScript, but there wasn't a dedicated outlet to kind of channel all that interest.
And honestly, if you're going to have a mobile strategy, you need to target more than just one platform.
Correct, yeah, you need cross-platform, I mean a hybrid of sorts between native and mobile web apps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's really what it is. It's still growing. Definitely I can see more interest, and the demand for it in terms of the market is relatively low. But talking to recruiters, they're saying they see slowly a shift from the West Coast or maybe New York area, where obviously a lot of the mobile work is, towards coming, southwest. So nice. I'll be probably starting another group. I'll keeping close to the chest, but you'll see the announcements. Another interesting group.
Okay, great. That's great, and that's going to be up in Jacksonville.
In Jacksonville, yeah.
Okay, great. So we'll definitely plug that. If you send us a link, we'll definitely try and plug that for you.
Yeah, and have you guys heard of OneSpark yet?
OneSpark?
Yes. So if you look it up, it's v1spark.com.
Okay.
Think about it as, I like to think some of like a South by Southeast.
Okay.
So it's like a crowdfunding festival.
Okay.
And there is the owner of Jaguars, Khan. He put up, I think, $1 million. And I think the total prizes you can win so the concept is it's going to be music, food festival, all in one, like 4 days in April. It's coming up, I think, in three weeks. So this is first time, so I'm really excited about it. So you've got creators, and then obviously just regular folks.
Okay.
So there are venues that participate. This is downtown areas.
Okay.
So creators, you can think about it, small startups, just individuals, right? Whatever. If you think something, you want to do business around crocheting, you can go there, register as long, and then people can give money, that's why it's called crowdfunding, and vote. So if you
Okay.
get enough votes, the votes are tallied up and then broken, competing for the big prize. So really exciting if you guys get a chance. I think it's not, it's unique right now. I hear other cities are trying, Tampa are trying to probably get some sense, maybe Orlando, but it's really unique.
So it's called One Spark?
It's One Spark, but I guess One Spark domain was taken, so it's b1spark.com.
All right. So letter B, One Spark.
It's B as in the word, B-E.
Oh, B-E. Okay.
B1 Spark.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll put a link to that in there as well. So
Okay.
thank you very much for coming on.
Absolutely, glad to be here. Really good.